Built it right, built it strong, built it fast, built it done, built it true, built it real, yeah, I built it.
All right. What is good? Let's see. Just another spectacular day here in Boise, Idaho. It's been a solid week of nothing but high of 80, low of, 50 in the night. It's just been absolutely perfect. Sunny, sunny, sunny. No complaints here. Let's see, what are we going to be talking about today? Today, I want to talk about feed forward versus feedback. I think feedback is a very popular parlance for telling you how it's going in the business world. And today I want to talk about the opposite of feedback, which is feed forward, and how that plays into projects. When you're doing a project, everyone understands what the idea of feedback is, but what are the exact tasks? What are the tasks associated with feedback? And then feed forward, first of all, what is feed forward? And what are the tasks in projects associated with feed forward? So that's what I want to chat about on this walk. Super happy you're joining me on this walk, on this beautiful, beautiful day. So let's get into it. What is feed forward versus feedback? So when you think about feedback, the idea comes from signals. For example, in radio or music, right? If you've ever been to a concert, if the output from a speaker also is the input to, say, a microphone, well, then you have a big problem. You get feedback. And what's going on there is, if you think about, you speak in, the sound wave goes into the microphone, comes out of the speaker. So if that same output then gets fed back into the input, well, then you're going to have the same output, and it goes around and around and around and doesn't stop. And what happens is the signal gets compressed in it, and then it spikes. That's when you hear the dee, right? Oof, your ears will ring. That is for sure. So that's this idea of feedback. This comes from this idea of taking outputs, putting them back into inputs. But the term in projects has really evolved from, I guess it is pretty similar, right? You take the output, what's been produced, and you use that as input for how it's going, right? If you're, for example, saying, hey, do you have any feedback for me on how my communication style is going here on these videos? Well, you're looking at my outputs and you're saying, hey, given your output, you need to say less often. I noticed that the other day when I was looking at the video. I was like, ooh, I need to say less often. And now I am cursed for the rest of the video. Every time I say it, you will be thinking about it. And that's okay, I will too. Let's do this together. But output, using the output as an input. So then what happens is then I update my thinking based off my outputs as I move forward on my next round of inputs, right? So that's the idea of feedback. What tasks do we often think of in conjunction with feedback? Well, there's three. There's three main tasks on any project that you're ever going to do for the rest of your life, whether it's a home project, a school project, a work project, a family project, it doesn't matter. I do not care. A community project, a political project, an economic project, a business project, they're all the same. They're all the same. No matter what project you do for the rest of your life, there's only three tasks that are associated with feedback, okay? And those tasks are verification, validation, and scoping. So these come from the 6 fundamental tasks of any project. And these are the 3, so half the tasks, 3 of the tasks are about feedback, and then 3 of the tasks, which we'll get to, are about feed forward. So feedback tasks, verification, validation, and scoping. Those are all about, hey, we have an output, we have something. How does that relate back to the need of a project, okay? So in projects, right, we don't have, our outputs are the solutions. Our outputs are our resources, right? The resources we have available and the solutions we're producing with them. So you have a need. The need drives us to accumulate resources that we then use to build a solution. So our two outputs, if you want to think about it that way, is our resource system and our solution system, or whatever the deliverable is on the project. So, come on. When we think about the tasks associated with feedback, well, what is driving, what is actually taking the output and then feeding it back into the need, right? What are we using as a signal about how things are going to then tell us how we need to understand our need better, okay? So let's walk through them. Number one, verification, right? How do we use verification? Well, you look at the solution and you see if that output, that deliverable, was implemented correctly given the spec and the resources that you had available, right? So there, it's very important to note that you're using the output to measure your implementation. That's all verification is, right? Did we build it correctly, right? Does it have virtue, right? Is it true? Is it sincere? Is it accurate? Did we do the right thing in the sense of building it correctly, okay? So that's all verification is doing. All right, how else do we use our outputs? Not only do we use our output to test if we built the thing correctly, right? Hey, we have a project. We're gonna replace the engine on one of these cars I'm walking around on. We're gonna swap it out. We do it, we verify that we did it correctly, right? All the bolts are in, the engine's facing the right direction. Someone was telling me about a Saab. I guess Saab cars, they put the engine in backwards. So you need all these specialized tools because the engine block is the opposite direction next to the firewall. And so you need all these special angled tools to undo the bolts. That's a bad idea. I guess, though, it's pretty good if you're a Saab mechanic. No one else is gonna have those tools. You'll probably get a nice little monopoly. But anyway, so did we verify that we implemented that solution correctly according to the plan? All right, nice. Next, validation. Well, that's going to use the output, the same exact output, but for a completely different purpose. Rather than seeing how well you used your resources, if you use them correctly, we're going to use that output to now tell us if we actually built something that solves the problem, right? Because you could have built the plan, you could have built the spec perfectly, but it 100% misses the point. It doesn't solve the problem. So validation asks the opposite question. Well, it just asks a different question. It says, does the solution actually solve the problem? Did we build the right thing? Okay, so when you validate, you said, hey, I had this problem. Maybe using the car example, gosh, my engine, how do you say that? My car doesn't move anymore. It is no longer able to generate energy. Great, you probably need a new engine. Your engine block is shot. Great, you swap it out, you verify, you did it right, and then great, boom, all of a sudden the car is functional again. We can validate that with a simple turn of a key, and we're off to the races. So that's validation. It's using your output to give us feedback that, yeah, sure enough, our input has been solved. So that's nice, that's the feedback. And then the last one we're using as output to test the input is scoping, right? So that one is saying a little different than looking at the deliverable. It's looking at your resources and saying, hey, are we scoping the needs correctly? We have an output, it's called our resources, our available materials, peoples, tools, money, energy, time, right? All these processes, these workflows, right? Everything we have at our disposal in terms of resources. And how is that looking? How's that matching up? How's that congelling with the input, which is the need, right? So that's scoping. So feedback on that higher level is just looking at outputs, whether those are resources or deliverables, and seeing how it connects back to the need, right? You're getting feedback, you're feeding it back to the need, okay? So that's feedback. So now let's talk about feed forward, okay? So feed forward is just kind of an extension of this idea, and you could probably see where it's going at this point, which is the other half of the system. So the feedback's all about reflection, looking backwards, starting from the end and looking back at the beginning, okay? It's all about consideration. So feedback is about reflection. It's about looking at the end and seeing how that affects the beginning, right? Looking at what comes out of the pipe to see what should go back into the pipe, to see if that's lining up. Then feed forward is the natural way of doing things, is that natural flow from beginning to end. It's about pushing the project forward. It's not about being reflective, it's about driving momentum. It's not about taking the end to look at the beginning, it's about taking the beginning to produce the end. Okay, so that's feed forward. So what are those 3 feed forward activities in any project? Once again, any project. Well, that's provisioning, specification, and delivery. Right? Those are those 3 fundamental tasks that are the feed forward tasks. So that's all around, hey, we have a need. How do we go from need to solution? How do we get from need to solution, right? The feedback's is the opposite. How do we go from solution back to the need? Feed forward's about, hey, how do we go from the need to drive a solution, right? So feed forward, provisioning, for example, we talked about that last time quite a bit. It's all around, hey, given the needs, given how we've scoped down this project, what materials, what processes, what goodies are we gonna need to pull this thing off? All right, so that's provisioning. What do we need to provide in terms of skills, tools, time, doesn't matter, in order for this project to have what it needs to be successful? It's provisioning. Then you have specification, right? Specification asks, given the need, what specifically does the solution need to look like, right? What is the design? What are the requirements? What's the architecture? What's the layout, right? So specification is all about specifying a plan. It's about listing out the details of the project, right? We have to specify what the solution needs to look like. And that can take, any number of things can instantiate or can actually fulfill that role of specification. In terms of work breakdown structures, timelines, Gantt charts, stoplight charts, technical readiness assessments, etc. You can ad nauseum on how people love to spec out. Oh boy, do people love to spec out projects. Okay. Then the last one that pushes the project forward is delivery. And that's pretty obvious. Using the resources you got, including the plans, to drive a solution, right? We use our resources to deliver a solution. So those are the 3 feed forward activities, okay? So you got the 3 feed forward, which is all about driving a project from beginning to end. Then you got the 3 feedback activities, which is about driving the project from the end back to the beginning. So if you notice that's pretty interesting, really, because there's a few different avenues I could talk about, but the first one is, are you a feedback person Or are you a feed forward person? That's an interesting question. Are you someone who more thinks in terms of needs and driving towards solutions? Or are you someone who's more thinking about the solutions, the current solution, and thinking about how well it's meeting the need? Are you reflecting on the need in terms of given what we got? How well are we doing? Are you verifying? Are you validating? Are you scoping? Are you thinking, hey, you know what? We could do this better. We could improve that, right? Are you more of a reflective, critical? I don't mean that in the negative sense. I mean, you know how to critique the current thing, right? Are you more that way, or are you more of a momentum generator, a concretizer, someone who says, hey, let's go shopping, let's get what we need, let's build the thing, let's do a weekend project, That is, those people that maybe have 5 different projects going on at any moment at their house. Their kitchen's half torn up and they just love getting things going. Oh yeah, they're high in delivery. Oh yeah, they are provisioning. Woo boy, right? But then you meet those other people. They're more feedback people. They're high in verification. Hey, I noticed this typo on this web page. Hey, I noticed, this person reacted that way to your communication style, and maybe you should reach out to them. Right? They always got a little bit of feedback for you, which is great. You need, on any team, you need feed forward and you need feedback people, right? Because if you only have feed forward people on a team, you're going to get a lot done. But I can't guarantee it's going to solve anything, right? And I also can't guarantee it's going to be done very well, right? We need the feedback people. We need the people to make sure things get done well, that they get done right? And that they are done in such a way that is realistic, right? Scoping is so important. Just to always remember, it's what keeps things realistic, expectations realistic. Those are the feedback people. We need them. Unfortunately, a lot of times the feedback people get a bad rap. Or is it rep? Bad rep? Like bad reputation? Bad rap? Like a rap sheet? I don't know. I don't know what the right phrase is. I could see it going either way. But either way, because they're not they tend not to be the ones who are building the thing, right? They might not be the ones developing the actual project. They might be QA, quality control. They might be auditors. They might be people who do testing and evaluation. They're the people that are the hurdles, right? They're seen as the checklist Nazis. They're seen as the thing to overcome. But really, we should all give a big hug and a kiss. Big hug and a kiss to the feedback people. Here's to you, because you're the thing that makes the world a better place, right? All of us feed forward people. I'm a feed forward person, 100%. I am scrappy. I can get stuff done. My output quantity will overwhelm you. I can just work my butt off producing 1,000 things. Now, can I guarantee you those 1,000 things are high quality? No. Can I guarantee you that they're all perfectly thought out? No. For me, it's spaghetti at a wall, see what sticks. Because I'm a feed forward person. I love the momentum. I love delivering. I love specifying. I love making a plan, executing. And then we do QA later. Actually, my version of QA tends to be, oh, it's working? Great. I must have done it right. So the old guess and check. I just want to say, so that's one angle. That's one angle of the importance of understanding feed forward versus feedback is just in team dynamics in general, right? How's your team? Just think about your team, the people you work with, your band, your company, your software development team, your construction crew, whatever it is you do, whatever projects you're working on, your family, right? Think about the breakdown of your people. Who's more of a feedback person and who's more of a feed forward person? Who's got the eye, right, of saying, hey, this is where this could be improved. Hey, you know what? We missed that detail. Hey, I think this solution is kind of missing the point. Or I think we're biting off more than we could chew. Those are your feedback people, okay? Hey, what are we doing right now? Hey, what's the plan for today? Hey, what are you working on? Hey, do you need anything? Do you need some materials? Do you need me to run to the store? Well, there you go. You got yourself a feed forward person. So think about that. Think about that. Are you stacked one way or the other? Are you overly stacked? Do you have too many feedback people on your team maybe? Whew. That means you guys sit around a lot, noticing all the things that could be better, that need to be better, all the things that are wrong. Who's fixing it? Who's going to do something about it? Versus feed forward team that's overstacked. Well, I guarantee you, you're stressing everybody out. You're getting a lot done, a lot of heat, maybe not a lot of light. Needing some quality control, slowing it down. So really, you do want a 50-50 split. Maybe it's not exactly 50-50, but you want at least both perspectives at all times on the table. Now, obviously, it matters in the project life cycle of when things are appropriate, right? If you're early planning, early in the project development cycle, getting a ton of verification, well, if it's the output, there's probably not going to be a lot of output to verify. But you could at least verify the plan is good, right? And at the very end, you're going to have a ton of testing and hopefully not a lot of delivery activities left. So there's kind of a natural cadence on when parts of your team are going to shine, when they're going to be more involved, right? If you have a earlier in the cycle, mid-cycle, feed forward, mid-cycle to late cycle, more feedback. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's places for all of it because there's always projects within projects within projects, right? It's like stinking Russian dolls or an onion or Inception or something. There's always layers upon layers of project activities. So there's always some verification that needs to be done. There's always scoping. Anyway, so that's feed forward versus feedback people. Now, the other interesting aspect to feed forward versus feedback, not talking about people, just talking about project dynamics, right? Just thinking about how projects dynamically work and evolve. So bear with me here. This is a little more, I don't know, heady or something, but the feedback takes the output to modify the input. So what that means, what I mean by that, is you have a solution. Maybe you're a painter. You're working on this commissioned piece of art. Maybe some graffiti, something on a wall, a cool mural or something. And you have the output, you've done it. And you go to the user, you go to the stakeholder and you say, hey, here's the mural you commissioned, right? At that moment, that user, that consumer of that art can either love it or hate it, right? They can say, wow, that's amazing, that's such a great job. Or that's awful, I wanted this. But here's a third, this is where it gets interesting. Here's a third option. And maybe you've experienced this, maybe you've seen this. That's not what I had in mind. That's not what I had in mind, but now that I see it, I love it. That is, from the example, it seems like, okay, cool. But think about that in terms of what I'm saying, in terms of feedback. Your solution changed what they had in mind. Whoa. It actually modified the need that they articulated. Your output fed back into their input and actually modified, it changed what they thought they needed. So you actually, through your output, adjusted the needs system, the system of needs that you were trying to meet, to solve, to fix, right? So even though your solution missed the mark, right? Your mural wasn't exactly what they had in mind. It affected them in such a way that it modified the need, and that modified need, your solution did satisfy. Wow. That, my friends, is called type 2 project convergence. At least that's what I call it, because I'm a nerd. Type 2 project convergence. Type 1 is you built the thing according to the needs, the solution met the need. Type 2 is you built a solution and the need changed to fit the solution. Whoa. Okay, so feedback is very, very powerful. Feedback is when you bring the outputs back to the inputs and you see if they're in agreement, in alignment, but it's not fixed, right? I think in project management, sometimes we think about this as the needs are fixed. They're not, they're alive, they're dynamic, they adjust and they adapt. Oh boy, do they. If anyone's worked with stakeholder groups, you know, there's that old engineering, kind of like undergrad engineering story where a boss tells a junior engineer, he said, hey, I want a rock, go get me a rock. So the junior engineer, he goes out to the parking lot and he grabs himself a rock. It's the first day of work, puts it on the boss's desk, and the boss says, no, that rock's too big. The junior engineer goes back out in the parking lot, grabs a smaller rock, comes back in, puts it on his desk. Oh, that rock's too round. Okay, interesting. Leaves, goes back in the parking lot, comes back, puts another rock on the desk. That rock's too heavy, right? And you get the idea, and you keep going. That rock's too brown, or whatever. That rock has too much sandstone in it, okay? And you could go on like this forever, right? And the moral of the story is all about specifying needs. Looking at your needs and really understanding their needs to such a place that you could spec out the solution they're actually needing, right, that they're requesting, and then you could actually deliver it, right? And so this is what happens when you try to deliver a solution without understanding the need. That's the moral of the story. It's supposed to teach you that you really need to understand the need to properly deliver a solution. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with that story. And I'm not trying to knock the story. That is true. How can I argue? You should understand the need you're trying to address. That's obvious, but it isn't the full story. It's not the full picture. Another type of thing happens, and you see it all the time, which is your solution feeds back and influences your user, right? Your solution comes back around, and all of a sudden, they like what they see, or it changes what they think that they want. So the need adapts to or from the output. Right? That's called feedback. You're putting feedback back into the development cycle. Okay? So what if instead of the user having a fixed mind, right? That's where we talked about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. But guess what? Not only do you need to have a growth mindset, your operators, your users, your decision makers, your stakeholders, they are also adaptive humans, right? They also probably have a growth mindset, and your outputs are affecting them. It's causing change. Now, this is good in the sense that sometimes the change is that they come around to your way of seeing, to your way of thinking. At first, they wanted something, but after seeing your solution, they see that you actually had a better idea in mind, and that you and your solution actually meets their need, right? This is the Henry Ford idea. If I built what the customer wanted, I would have built a faster horse, right? I think that's the quote. But Henry Ford didn't build a faster horse, right? He built the automobile because he knew that the customer isn't always right. They don't always know what a good solution is for themselves. They have a need, transportation. But if we just stick within their idea of a solution, we could get stuck. So if we deliver solutions that are better than what they had in mind, sometimes to the point where they've said, oh, actually, I don't need that after all. I didn't have that problem after all. This is the solution you provided solved a better problem or a deeper problem. That's powerful. But here's the flip side to that. And this is the danger, which is called oscillation, right? So all the engineers out there, you know all about oscillation. But if you're a creative or a project manager, whatever, cycles up and down infinitely, right? Going up and going down, you're oscillating. So sometimes your output can affect the inputs affect the outputs, and you have no stability, right? You're not actually driving towards alignment. You're out of alignment and you can't get into alignment because you're oscillating between what a good solution is and what the real needs are. So this is so common in project space, yet I don't think we've ever really identified it well in the literature. Maybe we have, maybe I just don't know it. So there's some good literature around oscillation between needs and solutions in projects. Let me know, I'd love to see a paper on that. The oscillation of a need, right? A user or someone comes to you with a need and they can't make up their mind. So your solution gets presented, then they change their mind. Then you have to build a different solution and then they change their mind or because of what they see. And then you can never come into agreement, right? You go round and round and round and round forever. That's a problem, right? That project is doomed to fail, right? If you can't come into alignment as a team, and I include the user as part of the team, if you can't come into alignment, if you can't come to terms with what the concrete needs are of the project and what the solution is gonna do, and every time you go through an iteration, someone's unhappy or someone's leaving thinking they need to be doing something different, and you're not driving towards convergence, whether type 1 or type 2, yeah, you're gonna be in an oscillatory pattern and you're not going anyway. This is the project management version of Purgatory. You're in project Purgatory. I love that. Maybe I'll call this video Project Purgatory. Probably not. Anyway, so yeah, you're not going anywhere in a hurry, and you're gonna be spending lots of resources, and that's where you just talk around in circles and you have serious problems. So yeah, so that's the idea between feed forward and feedback, what it does to a project in terms of project dynamics, how it can affect a team in terms of the way people are wired, but also competency, right? That'd be the third area that we could briefly talk about, which is, are you good? Are you a good feedback giver? Are you good at noticing feedback from your user, from outputs? Are you good at critiquing things yourself, right? Also, feed forward. Are you good at driving projects toward an end, right? Do you have a skill into scoping what's realistic, in speccing out what the solution needs to look like, in delivering that output? Are you good at these tasks, right? Do you know how to navigate them independently as a solopreneur or as a team player or as a part of a large organization working on a portfolio of projects? Do you understand the different dynamics that need to happen in order to pull these things off in your organization, right? To drive a project to its end. Do you understand the regulatory environment and speccing out the different constraints that are on you? And you're familiar enough with that domain that you know exactly what that spec needs to look like to drive it towards a realistic solution. And you're feedback aware enough that you know how to engage with the user when you have the finished product to help them digest, right? A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. You can help them digest your solution and come around to finding this as an acceptable solution, right? That is the skill, ladies and gentlemen. That is the goal here, which is, we all have projects. And like I said, no one cares about a failed project. Right? No one cares about your project that's stuck in an oscillatory pattern, right? You're in a holding pattern, like in an aircraft, right? You're in a holding pattern. No one cares. They care about outputs. They care about the projects you get done. So good luck. And today is May 4th, so may the 4th be with you.